I went to this church for the very first time, and I was in the church, and while I was at the church, the pastor was preaching, and he stopped his sermon, and he was like, "Hey, you young man, stand up." And I was looking around, and I was like, "Oh man, somebody done fell asleep. Like, what's going on out here? Like, you about to call somebody out? Oh man, that's crazy." He's like, "No, you stand up." And I was like, "Oh snap, what did I do?" And he was like, "The Lord is giving me a word for you. He's telling me that you want to be a TV writer, and you need to move to LA, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to have to just take a leap of faith and believe in God, and just I feel like you can be like the next Spielberg type of guy, but like you need to make this jump and go to LA." And I was like, wow, that's crazy. I had never spoken to this man a day in my life. Only like my original writing partner that I had mentioned before even knew that I was like really writing like that and like trying to get the craft. And like I had loosely been thinking about moving out here, but like I had no plans, I had no money. Like it was just like completely crazy for him to say that to me. But like in the back of my mind, I had already been thinking it, so that was just like the confirmation that I needed to make the jump.
All right. Hey there, everybody. My name is Abby, and welcome back to another episode of Modern Day Unicorns. Today, I have a friend. His name is Myles, and we went to high school together, and he is on a wonderful journey that I had to get him on the podcast to tell you more about himself and the awesome things that he is doing wherever he is. Myles, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here, Abby.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, can you please, just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper onto what you're doing present day.
Okay, well, my name is Myles Warden. I live in Los Angeles currently by way of Marietta, Georgia, where we met. And before then, I was actually born in Illinois, a little small town called Decatur. Went out to Illinois in about middle school, and then, I've been out here in LA for the past 7 or 8 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, now, Myles, when we were in high school, I knew that you were very artistic, and I'll say back then, I knew you were into music heavy. You were making beats and things of that nature. Can you take us a little bit through your creative things, or what you were doing back then? Because I know I've even introduced you to some people, and you all have completed some projects together. But take us into your interests. What are your interests?
Right. Well, right now I'm currently working on TV, but I also still, as you mentioned, I have my interest in music, songwriting. I started off DJing and songwriting in middle school, high school is what I was known for. I used to make the mixtapes and whatnot, and would DJ events and parties and different games and stuff like that. But I took the passion that I have for music, and now I just put it into TV. But it's all kind of the same. It's all just like trying to share information and knowledge and give a vibe to people via a medium. And sometimes the medium is music, sometimes that medium is TV, but just want to make people feel good and have a good time at the end of the day.
And that's amazing, because we know that, especially nowadays, communication is key, and having the ability to communicate in various different ways and forms and even languages is now like prized. I don't think that people understood how much it would mean to be able to communicate something effectively to the masses. And now we see with all of the networks and things of that nature that we have, that people soak that up, be it, something like Spotify or, Netflix, HBO, all of these different like platforms that are communicating a message, whatever message it may be. I think that's dope. So so you already started that stuff. You started your process into your 10,000 hours from middle school, high school. How did that help you mold kind of like what your career would be? Like, you went to college, but like, how did it shape your major and stuff like that?
So yeah, I went to, I was doing the music, making mixtapes and DJing and whatnot in high school, and I took it to college. A lot of people from Marietta went out to Valdosta State, where I went to school with me. So, I started off doing the house parties, and it built up my name, and then we started doing clubs. And originally, I was doing the DJ thing as a passion, but also I heard a story from Little John where he told me he started being on the radio. It may have been Ludacris as well. They were on the radio, but they were really on the radio as DJs to play their own music, but they knew that would be a good outlet for them to be able to promote themselves as artists. So I was trying to do both at the same time, but eventually the passion for DJing kind of overtook the music. But I was doing both at Valdosta State as well, making original music as well as DJing for the clubs and whatnot. My major was mass media communication, so I was on the radio out there while I was in school and whatnot. But at a certain point, like my passion just kind of got past school, like a little bit, where it was just like I don't see how this at the end of the day will help me get from point A to point B, and it just wasn't lining up, and some situations lined up for me to be able to take my passion and turn it into a career, and some different opportunities presented themselves to be a part of different projects, and I had to take it back to Atlanta. So I moved back to Atlanta about maybe junior year of Valdosta State and started working on music out there. And while I was working on music, this was around the time streaming, you mentioning Spotify, kind of took over, and like it became more about digital and less about physical albums and more about like digital singles. So like the music game was trying to catch up, and they didn't know how to adapt. So like a lot of albums got pushed back, songs stopped being 4 minutes long and they started being 3 minutes long because they were just trying to, it became short and just trying to sell things, and like artist development stopped happening and a lot of things started occurring. And as somebody who always had a lot to say, as I give this long-winded answer, I've always had a lot to say. So I couldn't really necessarily get the messages out that I wanted to in music the way that songs were going at the time. So a friend of mine suggested, they were like, "Hey, you're really funny, and I know you got a lot to say. Have you ever tried writing TV and movies? I know that's a really big passion of yours, and you know a lot about it." A friend of mine named Naomi Mack, who was actually my first movie and TV writing partner at the time, she encouraged me to take my passion for music and just transfer it to another medium. And at the end of the day, it's all storytelling. The same way with DJ is just storytelling, songwriting is storytelling, movies is storytelling, and it's almost all in 3 acts too. It's almost like all the same 3 act structure. One is just longer than the other. So I just learned that with her help and just with the help of what's available on the internet, and just soaking up all the games that I could, every which way I could. And I just transferred my passion from songwriting to TV and film.
Now, I really like what you described there, because I feel a lot of times that when we throw that word out, passion, that some people think that this is the only passion I'm allowed to have. This is the only path, and if I deter or pivot away from that thing that I decided to call my passion, then I quit. You know what I'm saying? So can you like, yeah, I don't like that. I think that you can transition from passion to passion, that you can pivot to allow it to not necessarily make more sense, but to grow yourself. And I think it's something that you can continue to touch on as you're doing. Like, your passion can evolve instead of you saying, I'm only passionate about this pen. This is my passion. But that doesn't mean that I can't use a pencil in the same way. Especially when this pen runs out of ink.
Right.
What do I do?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's go ahead, please.
No, that's very beneficial to creatives, especially like you said, that the running out of ink thing is a good metaphor, because if one river is running dry, so to speak, it's good to have another that you can transition off of, and not just transition off of it to survive, but also to fuel off of it. Like, if you can catch a high or catch some steam in this lane, and then you can use it to go back to the lane you were originally in and boost that up as well. So it's very beneficial. I think, like, on the surface you're like, oh, I can only be a writer, I can only be a singer, or you can only do like whatever it is that you're doing. But it's like there's an underlying theme to all of that. So like, as long as you're following that underlying theme, like I realized, oh, like me being a DJ and also trying to be an artist isn't weird, and then also trying to be a songwriter for other people isn't weird, and then also trying to now be a TV writer isn't weird. At the end of the day, my underlying theme is storytelling. I just like to tell stories, and I like to make people feel good. So once I figured that out, it all made sense and it all clicked. So you just have to figure out like how it clicks for you and what the underlying theme is versus just what the title is at that time.
Man, Myles, you're hitting a point here. I spoke to my prayer partner a couple of weeks ago, and I told her that my underlying goal in life at the moment is to be able to pursue different passions and things of that nature, to have the time and the freedom to help people. Like, I want to use content creation and editing and everything like that to be able, and I can fulfill multiple different goals with that alone. But then the more information I get into people's sphere gives me more time and more money, thankfully, to help other people continue to share their message. And I think that, we're on a similar wavelength to where I'm learning more about storytelling, but in my storytelling, it's helping people get their stories out so that that outlet is there. And I think that when you break it down like that, like when you find that underlying goal and that message, that why, and you're able to recreate it in many different forms, like that's amazing. And I feel like our generation is going into the whole, I know how to do multiple different things, but it's for X.
Right. No, that's very good. Like you said, I mean, like a passion of mine has always been, and like I've always loved kids and like educating and stuff like that, but I'm not a teacher, but you don't necessarily have to be a teacher to do things with children and to educate them and to implant certain seeds or whatever with the youth. Like part of my, I feel like purpose, so to speak, is to also just like put in themes and whatnot in my work, whether it's songs or TV or whatever that is, and like help that message pass down or whatever to them. And without, like I said, regardless of what lane I'm in, whether it's music or TV, I still want to do that. So you can do multiple things, or you can do certain things without staying in one lane, so to speak.
I mean, and we see that all the time when we have, musical artists who are acting, who also, Rihanna's a billionaire now.
Right.
Who has sang, acted, produced, created like clearly $1 billion like makeup and clothing line and things of that nature. So I think that, we have to allow creatives to let loose and be able to express themselves in various forms and not feel bad for it.
Yeah, I know a lot of times too, people like on the outside looking in are like, oh, they're just doing money grabs. They don't really care about all of those things, not understanding how passionate you can be about multiple things. Like there's a big misunderstanding where like people just get to a certain point and like, oh, they're just doing anything now. Like they're just doing what they're allowed to do and just taking money grabs or whatever the case may be. And it's like, you don't know that person may have had a passion for that the whole time. Like we don't know if Rihanna wanted to be a designer when she was little, but maybe her music gave her a position to be able to follow that passion once she made those contacts, and she could go back and dabble in these other ventures that she's in right now. Like you just never know their underlying theme that they have for themselves that they're trying to accomplish.
And I think sometimes the school system doesn't allow us to get lost in the things that we're interested in.
Yeah, it's built to make 9 to 5ers. It's not really built to allow us to think outside the box and to function. That was my, as much as I love school, that was my biggest issue with it.
So let's talk about when it comes to that, right? So traditional education is interesting. It works for some. Let's say it works for most. It gives many people the opportunity to support themselves and their families and things of that nature. If you had the opportunity to do things different, what is something that you would have done differently for your like younger education years that would have that you feel would have put you in a better position to, I guess, not necessarily know what you want to do earlier, but allow you to be immersed in the environment that you are in now?
I'm a faithful person, as you know, so like I'm not sure I would have actually done anything different. It would have been nice, I guess, to like know more people in the positions that I was trying to be in and not be such an outsider. Just being able to have those mentors or being able to call on certain people or just see people exist in certain worlds that we don't get to see. Like as a black man, I didn't see any black men TV writers when I was a kid. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I didn't know you could make money being funny. Like a lot of like the class clowns in our school probably could be TV writers, but they don't know it exists. Like they're funnier than half the people out here probably, but they don't know that certain lanes exist because we don't see it. So I think that would be the only thing I would change if like I could see someone like me when I was younger that could help inspire me or whatever. That would be good, but that'll probably be about it.
And that's what inspires these conversations for me as well, is because it's the exposure. Too many things that I have now grown to love, I stumbled upon it on accident. I happened to speak to the right person at the right time on accident, or and I'm a person of faith as well, so those things aligned, but the opportunity essentially wasn't there for me to meet somebody. It's just like, I'm sorry, you do what? How does that work? Like, that's awesome. But okay, so thank you so much for that. I appreciate your answer as well, because I think that a lot of things that happened in my life, had it not took place, I wouldn't be where I am today, which I'm pleased in the position that I am today, and I look forward to seeing what continues to come of all of our situations. I'm interested to know your journey from what I understand now, Atlanta to LA, and now to the point where you're working for a TV show. Can you walk us through kind of some of the shifts and the things that you had to go through to get the position that you have today?
It was a pretty like wild journey. I actually made the jump to LA, speaking of being faith based, on a whim, so to speak, based off of what a pastor told me. I went to this church for the very first time, and I was in the church, and while I was at the church, the pastor was preaching, and he stopped his sermon, and he was like, "Hey, you young man, stand up." And I was looking around, and I was like, "Oh man, somebody done fell asleep. Like, what's going on out here? Like, you about to call somebody out? Oh man, that's crazy." He's like, "No, you stand up." And I was like, "Oh snap, what did I do?" And he was like, "The Lord is giving me a word for you. He's telling me that you want to be a TV writer, and you need to move to LA, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to have to just take a leap of faith and believe in God, and just, I feel like you can be like the next Spielberg type of guy, but like, you need to make this jump and go to LA." And I was like, wow, that's crazy. I had never spoken to this man a day in my life. Only like my original writing partner that I had mentioned before even knew that I was like really writing like that, and like trying to get the craft. And like, I had loosely been thinking about moving out here, but like, I had no plans, I had no money. Like, it was just like completely crazy for him to say that to me. But like, in the back of my mind, I had already been thinking it, so that was just like the confirmation that I needed to make the jump. So I made the jump after like a few months. And when I was out here, like day two, I made another jump, and I caught the train to an area I probably shouldn't have been in, to be an extra on set for this web series that was being shot at the time, which ended up being shot by what is now an Oscar-winning director. But at the time, nobody knew who he was. And while on the set, I met someone. They partnered me up with someone to be like in the background, like, you two go over here and have drinks at the bar, you two go over here and dance in this scene. And I was just out there just trying to network. Like I said, it was day two. I didn't know anybody. I'm not trying to be an actor, but I just wanted to get my feet wet in the town. So I'm out here, they're pairing us up the whole time, the whole night. So I'm like, well, I guess we're a team now. They're calling us you two, so I guess we should get to know each other. So I met my now current writing partner, Capri Sampson. She was on set as well. She had been out here for a few months. But like I said, it was day two for me, but it ended up being like the perfect timing, and a great situation. Like, that web series ended up never actually getting complete. They lost the files, but so the only like actual thing to come out of it is our partnership, which is just crazy. So we've been writing ever since then. Like, we linked up and we were just discussing like what we like, what we grew up on, TGIF, things of that nature, how we wanted to make people feel. She was acting and didn't see the roles that she wanted to have, and I as a writer, I didn't see the type of characters and personalities that I wanted to see on TV and that I wanted the youth to see too. Like, we grew up on TV that had message, but like, it wasn't like corny message. Like, Fresh Prince had messages and themes, but nobody at the time, you're just laughing so hard you don't even realize they're teaching you good things about life. Like, so many of these shows was teaching us how to be good friends, how to be good parents, how to be whatever the case may be. And like, but it's so funny you don't get that. And there was a time, especially a few years ago, where like, it was a struggle to find black faces on TV just trying to make people laugh and actually having good messages involved. Like, so we wanted to try to bring some of those vibes back. So we linked up. Like I said, I think that was about 8 years ago, and started working, and we've been working ever since. So that actually led to a situation. It was crazy that the part of what clicked us was having an affection for TGIF. And around that same time, there was a reboot of a show called Boy Meets World, which the reboot was called Girl Meets World. And we ended up going to that set a few times and meeting the producers from the show. And they ended up being mentors to us and ended up reading our scripts. And we wrote a script about her going to an all-black boarding school in middle school and high school, which was crazy to me. I never heard of an all-black boarding school. I was like, that's an insane subject that I would love to see, because you never see black kids at boarding school, period. Let alone an all-black boarding school, which I believe she says has like a 98% graduation rate, and they all go to college, and like it's an insane thing. So I was like, okay, let's.
I know of one for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably that one, because there's only like 3, I believe, in the country. So we wrote a script about that, and the producers read it and loved it, and they told us to try to get into this ABC fellowship program. So to get into that program, we had to write another script to go with that one, a spec script, which is a script of a TV show that's currently on air. And we wrote a spec script for a show called The Carmichael Show. So unfortunately, we didn't get into they told us if we got into they would hire us for the next season if we got into that program. Unfortunately, we didn't get into the program, but years later, this is where like faith comes into play. Like last year, that same script from about 4 or 5 years ago, the Carmichael script ended up being online during the pandemic. I saw a lot of writers complaining about like how they have all these old scripts sitting around and like they just collect dust and nobody reads them. Specifically spec scripts of TV shows, because now TV shows don't last that long. So spec scripts don't last that long, because by the time they get done with their script, that TV show is canceled. So nobody wants to read the script of that episode of that TV show. So I created a list with a friend of mine named Jackie. We created a list and put it up online for everyone to kind of give a second life to everyone's spec script, so they could post it online and producers can read them and whatnot. There was a lot of people reading a lot of scripts during the pandemic because people had time. So people were looking for like young black talent and just different talent in general in places they don't normally look for it. So we created that list, and in that list was our Carmichael spec script from about 4 years ago. And a producer from the Carmichael show actually found the list and read it, loved it, and he was like, I can't believe you guys aren't working right now. Who reps you guys? What's happening? What's your situation? And he really wanted to help us out. So he ended up reading a few more scripts of ours. And then he was like, I really want to help you guys get management and just start getting work out here. So he was like, who can I introduce you to? Do you have anybody in mind? And I did have somebody in mind, having done the homework for the last 8 years. I had a couple of people in mind, so he was like, he shot the shot. He's like, okay, I'll send it over to them. You know, Hollywood, they may get back, they may not. It'll probably take a few months or whatever, but just check back in with me in like a few months if you haven't heard anything. The very next day, that man hit us back and was like, they love the script and they want to meet with you guys immediately. When can we set it up? So we set it up, and like they're the best management ever. So like we got reps like the next day after that.
Wow.
We got signed with Artist First Management, and about almost a year to the date after that, we got a job on Netflix. So
that's amazing.
It's been a crazy ride for sure. An 8-year overnight success story, as I like to call it.
I love. Now listen, I usually ask you for some tips, but I'm going to now recap the things that I heard you say before I let you give these tips. You know what? Hold on, just in case I can grab some more things out of you. During COVID, what were you doing?
Before COVID, I just had like a regular job. I had worked a few startup jobs out here, just to pay the bills and whatnot. So we got to keep the 9-to-5s out here, stay hustling. So I worked at several startup companies while I was out here. And when the pandemic hit, the company, everything shut down. So that's part of my drive. I was online. I was noticing the trends and what was happening. I was like, okay, producers are out here. They're available now. They're reading things. And people are more open to new writers, and I saw like there was an actual passion for that, which is why I ended up making that list with Jackie and posting those old scripts online just to try to get them some new life.
Yep, and I did grab something else out of that. So I'm going to tell you what I'm getting and what I'm gathering from your story, which like I said, I really appreciate you spending this time with me. So like the first thing as we were speaking is about like exposure. So the things that you're interested in, expose yourself to it. The best way that you can, like the internet is literally at our fingertips. You probably sleep with the bed in your phone and stuff like that. So it's not as difficult as it used to be able to follow these celebrities, producers, whatever you're interested in, photographers and things of that nature, to immerse yourself in the thing that you're interested in, right? And then I think, I don't want to say one of the hardest things, but something that can be, I guess, difficult, or maybe you're, even in my case, like sometimes you just get a little bit scared to find a mentor. Like, what does that mean? To find somebody willing to share their story, their process, and even assist you in what you think that you want to do. But it's important to find that. And once again, online can be another platform for you to find people who you choose to mentor you from just a different angle. Maybe you don't know them personally and things of that nature, but finding people that inspire you in the lane that you're traveling, right? The next thing is that I like that you said is I'm going to go with the homework. When you talked about going on set and just understanding that this is a part of the life that I want to live. So part of the thing is being in the environment, the exposure, immersing yourself, going on set, doing, I called it grunt work at first, but it's not always like, a problem or something that is grueling, but it is doing your homework. Like, okay, there is, you looked for an opportunity and you went there. So that's homework. And then even like the slash is the work part that comes. Like while you work, a lot of times, even when we're in school, when we're doing homework, we still have to do classwork. So that's you working another job in order to be able to do the homework, in order to be able to do that extracurricular activity. So I appreciate that. And then there's programs and fellowships and things that nature, and building those relationships with people. And then like I appreciate the fact that you and your writing partner were doing the work. And a lot of times, I love the analogy of your 8-year overnight success, is that we want things instantly these days. We're not willing to have if somebody told you have to wait 8 years for your big break, you probably would have kept DJing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
You're like, well, I can DJ today.
Exactly.
But if you had the option to be between DJing and writing, that gap is a lot. And I'll even use like a biblical analogy, like 40 years happened a lot in the Bible for people to have to wait for a situation to not overcome, but like get through a situation. But I appreciate the process and the work that you all did and the opportunity that you gave many other people for it to be revived. But the key thing that I want to bring out there is that it was done, that you completed it, and it was like not everything that you archive is like finished. And I love that.
And you also, and like you said, you got to have those, having done the work, you got to have those follows, because immediately once they get that first thing, they're like, okay, this is dope, but people are going to check you and be like, what, do you have something to back this up? Can you do this again? Can you duplicate that? So had we stopped when that opportunity to try to get into that fellowship didn't work out, and had that just been all we had, where we was like, no, well, we did those two, then we didn't get into that program, so we stopped, that wouldn't have been enough. He would have been like, oh, that's great, but I can't do anything with that. But we had several follow-ups to prove prove that we actually had what it took. So that's what ultimately enabled us to get through the door.
And I'm sure it built up your stamina and allowed you to have enough exposure with success and failure to continue to write things that are valuable not only to you but the people who are going to be viewing it. So that's amazing. Now listen, I want to toss this thing back over to you. So I know that I done stole my encouragement from you speaking with me today, and I got some things that I need to work on and complete. So thank you for speaking to me today. But what are 3 tips that you would give somebody? And like we said earlier, you can say whatever you want to say, be it in the realm that you're in now, or be it the process that it takes to get to where you are. What are 3 tips that you would give anybody looking to be in a similar situation?
Well, this may be an extra, I'll call this a bonus tip because it just came to me, but the conversation earlier that we had about like managing multiple passions that you have and never giving up on that other passion, and how one passion can balance the other one out or can boost the other one up sometimes. If the screenwriting wasn't working, I still always had the songwriting connections and working on things with producers, like you said, people who I've worked on projects with and helping other people get projects finished and whatnot as well. So right before the pandemic hit, I was also doing songwriting, and I had just started doing songwriting camps with my partner T Nice. We did a songwriting camp to help find other songwriters. So I think a big thing that you can always do is like, while you're still trying to do what you're trying to do, you can always look and see how you can help other people, even if you aren't where you want to be. The same way we did with the list online that we posted with other people's scripts, or when we had the songwriting camp right before the pandemic hit with Rodney Jerkins. We took 10 songwriters and producers from Canada who had never been out of Canada and put them in the studio with Rodney Jerkins. And it was a very inspiring thing, not just for them, but for us as well. And just feed off that energy, and then I could take that fuel, and then it could help me creatively back with the scripts, and just fuel that passion too, and make sure I stay focused and to keep my drive up. So I would always say, like, don't wait to get to where you want to be. People are always like, oh, well, if I get to this place, then I know I can reach back down and help people out. You can help people along your journey. You don't need to get to the top of the mountain before you try to lift somebody up. You can be in the middle of the mountain, or you can be at the bottom of the mountain and still boost somebody up. So, and you never know how karma will repay you for that at the end of the day. So I think that's a really big thing. But ultimately, I would say, like, the persistence, like you mentioned, is a big key. Probably the 3 P's: persistence, perseverance, and patience. At the end of the day, will be the biggest things. Like you said, that patience is it. It did take 8 years. The opportunities that we thought would come several times did not come. There was a lot of missteps, and not even just missteps, but things that fall apart that are ultimately out of your control, and you just have to roll with that and just trust the process at the end of the day. And the persistence is just to keep at it no matter what. There's a saying that says, like, oh, if you can do something else besides like be in Hollywood or besides be a writer, you should go do that, because this is going to be hard, and if you can't stay with it, then like you're going to be wasting your time. I don't 100% agree with that, but I 1,000% agree with like the sentiment behind it, because I know the struggle that it takes, and you have to be able to ride the wave, and if you can't, then ultimately like you will not reach your goal.
I love it. Those are all valid points that people can definitely take in varying situations as they continue whatever journey that they're on, or maybe they're deciding they want to take a jump. So thank you for that. Can you please share the various different ways and mediums that people can either follow your journey or get in contact with you?
For sure. You can hit me on Twitter or Instagram at Really Mighty, ReallyMighty. You can also follow my Instagram that I have with my partner, Capri and Mighty, CAPRIANDMIGHTY.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing more of the awesome things that you get your, look at me, I'm falling, that you get your hands on, man. And I really appreciate it. We were speaking a little bit earlier, like, yeah, we haven't really spoken to each other since like high school, early college days. And so I'm happy that there is social media around to make sure that everybody's okay. But let's not make it the however many years it has been before we actually speak in person. And I encourage that to other people as well. Like, I appreciate every person that I have the opportunity to interview, and I want to take a more conscious effort. I know we can't speak to everybody, but if you could have the opportunity to speak to somebody that you haven't spoken to in a long time, to have, we have Skype, we have poor Skype. We have Skype, we have Zoom, we have FaceTime. There's plenty of different avenues. You can just call on a regular phone. Check in with people. Talk to them. I think that's super important, which is why I enjoy these conversations so much, because it gives me an opportunity to get caught up on all of the wonderful things that people that I admire and that I befriend has done so. I want to thank you for that. As for everybody that is listening, you already heard my call to action for you is to call and speak to somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. You stop just following them and check on them. But once again, this is Modern Day Unicorns. If you are a unicorn yourself, or you know anybody else that I can have a conversation with, I'd love for you to comment below and get us connected. And I look forward to speaking with you all in the future. Take care. Thank you, Myles.
Thank you. Later.